Hi, this is Katrina Herbert, and my speech today will be on I Have a Dream, copyrighted 1963 by Dr. Martin Luther King at the March on Washington. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree is a great beacon, light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still badly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of America society and finds himself in the exile of his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation, capital, to cash a check. When the architects of the Republic wrote the magnificent word of the Constitutional Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall here. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, will be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note. Insofar as our citizens of color are concerned, instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come to mark insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunities of this nation. So we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hollow spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or take the tranquilizing drug of granulism. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy. Now is the time to make real from the dark and desolated valleys of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nations from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It will be fatal for the nations to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not the end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening. If the nation returns to business as usual, there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolts will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright days of justice emerge. And that is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn threshold which leads in the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must be not guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom, but drink it from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggles on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militant which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers are evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is intricately bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone, and as we walk, we must take the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking, the devotees of civil rights, when will we be satisfied? When can we be satisfied as long as the Negro is a victim of unspeakable horrors of police brutality? When can we never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in the motels of the highways and the hotels in the city? We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a similar ghetto to a larger one. We can never be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their adulthood and robbed of their dignity by signs of status for whites only. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and the Negroes in New York believe he has nothing for which to vote. No, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like the waters and the righteousness like a mighty stream. I am not mindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your request for freedom left you battered by the storm of persecution and staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering and redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and the ghettos of the northern cities, knowing that somehow the situation will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you, my friends, today, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths as self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis, freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day in Alabama, with its vicious racism, its governor will having his lip dripping with the words of the interposition and nullification. One day there in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join in hands with little white boys and little white girls and sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is our faith that I will go back to the South with. With the faith, we will be honored, able to hew out the mountain of despair and stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony. This will be the day when all God's children will be able to sing the new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. And if America is to be a great nation, this must come true. So let freedom ring from the prestigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom ring let freedom ring from the heightened Alleghenies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvier slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside. Let freedom ring. When we allow freedom to ring, we let it ring from every city, every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day when all God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the all Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last, great God Almighty, we are free at last.